I'm Tanya Peel. I'm creating a show mixed with family recipes and vintage finds. When I find a vintage dish, I'm always wondering, if you could talk, what would your story be? Where did you come from, and whose hands have touched you? Whose home have you been in, and how far did you travel to get to me? After discovering a new vintage piece, I'm almost always thinking about a meal my mom or granny prepared for me, how that made me feel to eat something so delicious made with love, and how I can serve up my own creations to feed my family and friends. It's how I show love. So if you think about it, it makes sense to blend the two, because every dish has a story. Episode 2, EAPG Cake Stands, McCall's Cooking School, and the Perfect Chocolate Cake. According to the Corning Museum of Glass, the first glass created by humans can be dated to about 4,000 years ago, when craftsmen discovered the art of mixing sand, soda, and lime and applying heat. With a combination of imagination and fire, we certainly added some functionality into our existence. Glass was considered a luxury item used by the noble and upper class. In the beginning, glass was made by using mud cores, and then eventually moved into glass blowing. Glass blowing became the dominant and more efficient method until machines. The first pressed glass machine was developed in 1825, but the actual production of the pressed glass, especially goblets, started in the 1840s, known as Early American Pressed Glass, also referred to as EAPG. Pressed glass largely replaced hand-blown glass in the production of tableware, reflecting the shifting towards mass production and affordability. Over time, as the technology of the machines improved, this enabled the manufacturers to mass produce matching glassware, pieces, and coordinated sets. EAPG has a wide range of patterns, some up to 1,000 different pieces. There were also hundreds of manufacturers of glass: Bryce Brothers, McKee & Brothers, U.S. Glass Company, Hersey, and so many more. It began with the drinking glass and then expanded to plates, bowls, butter and sugar dishes, fruit compotes, and celery vases. Although that piece has always been interesting, celery was also considered a luxury item, but yet the celery vase was mass-produced for the working class? That's still a mystery. Moving along to the evolution of cake stands. The first platter, or salvers as they were known, were made popular in Philadelphia in the 1770s. The afternoon tea activity during the period of the Victorian era, which began around 1837, gave the cake stand more attention as well. But then in the 1860s and 70s, because of the pressed glass machines and the economic prosperity, this allowed the manufacturers to diversify their offerings by creating specialized pieces like the cake stands. Welcome to my favorite topic in the EAPG era: my addiction, my love, my deep desire to bring them all home to me. Cake stands. Cake stands. Cake stands. More cake stands. EAPG cake stands came in a variety of sizes, patterns, and colors. My collection is predominantly clear. These cake stands, available in sizes ranging from the petite size all the way to the grand 12-inch diameter, often mirrored the luxurious taste of the era. For example, O'Hare Glass Company's crown jewel design featured a base adorned with chandelier-like crystals, while George Duncan & Sons sculpted decorative forms like a woman's face into the pedestal. Oh, the imagination and beauty of them all. I can imagine and feel the stories that these cake plates conjure up, the stories that were told around these cakes while ladies were having tea. Think about that time period. It's fascinating. I was listening to a podcast earlier about AI between Jay Shetty and Deepak Chopra. It was said that between 1887 and 1903, we created the light bulb, the automobile, the airplane, and the telephone. That's just a 20-year span. What an interesting time to have been alive. Clearly, the prosperity happening in society was due to the creation from the Industrial Revolution. While there were a lot of nasty things happening during that time as well, there was also a lot of imagination and beauty. Just like today, and just like everything from the beginning of time as we know it. So as we find ourselves in another time of great change, and perhaps a little stress, I try to find the little things that bring joy into my life, and cake plates are one of the ways that I achieve this. Before we get cooking, I received my grandmother's recipe boxes when she passed. It included her handwritten recipes, along with cutouts from newspapers and magazines of recipes she wanted to make. It would be one of the church ladies up the road or from another county over in Mississippi or Alabama, published with their preserved recipe along with her name and address. How crazy is that? Several cutouts in my grandmother's boxes were from McCalls's magazine, which was a leading American woman's publication in circulation from 1873 to 2002. In the mid-1970s, the Cooking School series was designed to empower home cooks with clear, step-by-step recipes and accompanying photographs, making the cooking process easy to follow and mistake-proof. One of the pages I found was for the perfect chocolate cake. When I tell you that this is the only chocolate cake recipe that you will ever need, I mean it. It's really perfect. This cake is moist and light, sinfully rich, and lots of chocolate and whipped cream. It's a match made in heaven. Have you ever heard of that saying, proper planning prevents poor performance? Try saying that 5 times fast. This is one of those steps that needs proper planning. We need to take 2 cups of hot water and 1 cup of unsweetened, unsifted cocoa powder. I just boiled my water in my tea kettle. That seems to do the trick. So we'll get this stirred up. Doesn't take long. You want to get all the lumps out. Happens pretty quickly because of the hot water. And then once you get this stirred, you want to set to the side and go find something else you can do for 30 minutes because that's about how long it's going to take for it to completely cool. Next, we want to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. We want to grease 3 9-inch by 1.5-inch cake tins. There's several different ways you can grease the tins. You can use butter, which imparts a really nice flavor, but I find sometimes that the edges still stick when I'm trying to turn my cake out. And then you have a cooking oil spray, which works great and it's fast, but I always find that it gets messy and gets everything sticky around it. So I just go with the tried and true method, a shortening, which is full fat, has a greater barrier for sticking. I just use my silicone brush and get it wiped on, making sure that there's no extra places where it cakes up. So just make sure you get the fat right in the edges and the creases where it tends to stick the most. And we'll take a little bit of flour. And then you just kind of want to knock it around, just like that. The next step is to blend all of our dry ingredients together, and we're going to want to sift them. I'm going to be using my cute little sifter here. We want 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I just put mine right into the sifter. Next, we have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and then we want to sift. It's my grandmother's cute little cherry sifter. And then I like to give just a little extra stir to make sure that the salt, baking powders are all incorporated really well. So now the wet ingredients. We have 1 cup of softened butter, and we have 2.5 cups of granulated sugar, and we want to give this a quick mix. So now we have that blended fairly well. We're going to have 4 eggs, and I'm just going to put them in one at a time. Just blend this up just until it gets mixed up nice, about 2 minutes. The recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I prefer vanilla bean paste. I think it adds a more distinct flavor, but you can use extract and it'll be just fine. I also like using the vanilla bean paste because when you're doing custards or ice creams, you can see the bean flecks. And if you get a little more, that's okay. It's going to be just fine. We'll give this another 2 minutes of a mix. So this is a good consistency. I'm going to tap this off and change my paddle. Now that we have our new paddle on, we're going to incorporate the flour mixture and the cooled down cocoa. So we're going to begin with the flour and then alternate to the cocoa mix as we mix it into our wet ingredients, and we want to try to end with our flour mix. And we want to go light. We don't want to overbeat this once we start getting the flour mixture into it. The last little bit of chocolate. I'm a messy cake baker. For all the messy cake bakers out there, you can still do this cake and it's going to turn out just great. All right, I'm going to do the rest by hand. Now that I've cleaned myself up and the table, I'm here to inspire all the people who don't cook, right? So you can make messes. It's not the end of the world. So this looks like I got everything blended up really nice. And now we want to distribute this into 3 of our greased and floured cake pans. This one seems a little light. Take one more spoonful here. All right, so in they go for 25 to 30 minutes. I'll check mine around the 22, 23 minute mark, and you'll be able to put your finger and tap on the top, and it'll be a little spongy. That's when you know that they're done. Or you can do the toothpick method to make sure that none of the moisture that may be in the cake comes off of it. And when it comes out clean, you're ready to go. All right, putting them in. I like to get busy doing the filling for the cake next. Because it's a whipped cream filling, I like to make sure that it's really cold before I spread it in between the cake layers. The recipe calls for 1 cup of whipped cream. I like to make just a little more, so I do 1.5 cups of whipped cream, and you want this chilled. I just took this out of the refrigerator. Next, we want to do 1/4 cup of confection sugar, unsifted. You could do a little more because I'm adding a little more whipped cream, but I don't like things too overly sweet, so I'm going to stick with what the recipe calls, which is 1/4 cup. The next little addition that I do is a little trick that I learned. Anytime I'm doing a whipped cream, filling, frosting, and I want it to stand the test of time, especially if I'm going to have it out for like a brunch or a dinner, is I take a tablespoon of instant pudding. I either do the white chocolate or the vanilla, and that will help keep your whipped cream, filling or frosting more stable. I have a tablespoon of white chocolate. And then we have vanilla extract, but I do vanilla bean paste, and I just pour like a teaspoon in. And if it's a little more, that's okay. Sometimes I put Kahlua. And we're just gonna mix that until it sets. So this just takes just a few minutes, and you want to watch it as the best way. You don't want to overmix whipped cream because then you may get butter. You want it to have a thicker consistency because it's going to be a filling. So you got to get it just right. You can see that it sticks on the beater, and that's kind of what you want. And then I just like to give it a little mix, and then I'm just going to place this whole thing in the refrigerator. It's a good consistency. And then, that's tasty. All right, it's been about 25 minutes and I want to check the cake. Ooh, those look good. It's a little springy. I want to check the center though, so I'll put my little toothpick in. And I think those are good. We're gonna make the frosting. And I like to double it. So you can follow the recipe, but in the past I've just barely had enough, so I would rather have more than not enough. I'm going to turn the stove on medium. We have 2 cups of butter and 1 cup of light cream. And then we have 12 ounces of chocolate pieces, semisweet. And then a little addition, I have a little instant coffee. Anything chocolate, whenever you have a little bit of coffee, so it's just like a tablespoon. And then we're just gonna melt this. So this is looking really good. It's smooth, it's melted. I've turned the eye off. I'm gonna get my little hot pad so I can put my mixture. And this is my ice bowl. You can see all I did is fill this with ice in the bottom and have my confection sugar. And I'm gonna pour just a little in. I'm always making a mess. It's okay, messy cooks make it in this world too. So we're gonna go really slow to start so we don't get chocolate everywhere. Okay, I'll pour a little more. Yummy, it smells so good. I wish we had smell-o-vision. Nothing better than chocolate, I'm telling you right now. For the rest. And I know this seems crazy, but I'm gonna do a dash of salt, even though the recipe doesn't call for it, because it makes all the other flavors come out. Just a dash. So this may take a while because it needs to completely cool in the ice bath before it starts to set up. So don't worry. It's gonna take a minute. So you can see how it's starting to get thicker and thicker, and that's what you want. In the picture, they've got like a hand beater, like a manual one. God bless. Yummy. All right. So basically, there you have it. It's so good. That salt made all the flavors just a little brighter. That little bit of coffee, you can really taste it. It's so delicious. I'm gonna wait about another 10 minutes probably to make sure that my cake is completely cool, and then we'll start frosting our perfect chocolate cake. So we're gonna take about half of our whipped cream filling, and then I'm just gonna use a spatula and get it spread on evenly. Just take your time, don't go too fast. You can see how the whipped cream stands up nicely, and it has a lot to do with the instant pudding that we put in here. All right, and then very carefully, because these cakes are very, very moist, just lightly, gently pick it up. And we want to lay it. And then I like to kind of turn it around and just make sure that things are level somewhat. Sometimes my cakes are a little lopsided. We're calling it the perfect chocolate cake. I didn't say that I was the perfect baker, but that just goes to show you that anybody can do this. And the cake is just so moist. All right. Now for the third and final layer. Take my spatula and kind of just make sure that I make this straight before I start layering up the chocolate on it. As you see, it makes me really happy that I have the actual cake stand that is in this picture. This cake stand was made by the United States Glass Company. I believe this pattern came out in 1897, and I believe it was also made in the Ohio factory. So I want to give my chocolate frosting a nice little whisk before I start layering. You can see how it's set up very nice. I like to use a spoon just to get it on. And this cake will need to go in the refrigerator. And then I always like to take it out a good 30 minutes before I cut into it. So I'll get a nice little light layer on, and then I'll add more. So I never put this frosting after I made it in the refrigerator because I like it to be very smooth when I'm applying it to the cake. If you like yours a little tighter, then you can put it in the refrigerator for a good 10 minutes and that should do it. Because you can never have enough chocolate, that's why I make extra. You can also freeze this and use it for a different dessert, another cake. All right, folks, so here we go, the moment of truth. Yummy. The perfect chocolate cake. Let's see if I can get this baby out without making a mess. Ooh, look how pretty it is. Aw, she turned out good. I'm gonna put her on her side. I'll do a little whipped cream, a little chocolate. The chocolate cake itself is super rich, chocolatey goodness, not too overly sweet, which is what I really love about this cake. The frosting is absolutely delicious. You can taste the hint of coffee. So good. Collecting cake plates and many other different patterns can be a lot of fun. If you are curious, one of the places and the resources that I use is the Early American Press Glass Society, and they are just a plethora of information, and I have basically taught myself a lot of the knowledge that I know from their website. So they're a wonderful, wonderful resource. That's it. I hope you have a good day, and I think we all should eat more chocolate cake.